Happy Sunday, Kelly Dunlap here. Just wanted to jump on and say, hey, it's starting to get pretty snowy out here in Michigan, and it's very cold. Polly D and I and Ayana had just gotten back from the gym a little while ago, and man, it is cold. Anyway, hey, welcome. Um, Wanted to say, hey, thought that I would share some of the biggest contributors to your cravings. And I say this because I had this kind of light bulb moment last night thinking, I got to go live about this. I got to share this information because most of the time people don't recognize a lot of these things. And I know for myself, I know what contributes to my personal cravings. I mean, everybody is different, but there's going to be a lot of commonality for most people. And I know one thing that I'm just going to tell you right now off the bat is if you are not getting enough sleep, you are definitely going to have increased cravings. There are probably about 5 or 6 things that I'm going to share with you. But one of the big heavy hitters is cravings. So if you're tired or if you find that you're not getting your adequate rest, that is definitely one of them. I know for us right now, Ayana's sleep habits are a little bit wonky, for lack of better words. Some nights she has good sleep and other nights she doesn't. So then, of course, what does it do? It affects our sleep. So then I find myself, this is honest truth, I find myself when I wake up in the middle of the night going, I want something crunchy and salty. Now, really? It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. But wherever this maybe years ago, you have to remember too, and this is another thing that I want to share with you, is another thing that contributes to your cravings is old habit loops, triggers, and like really memories from the past. So that's a really big one, and I'll elaborate on that in just a minute. But somewhere along the way, probably during this process of having children, I have 3 of them, 2 are teenagers, right? That somewhere along the way, that maybe that was a coping mechanism for me, during while Blake and Colin were little. No idea, don't remember. But whenever she wakes up in the middle of the night, I find myself wanting to reach for things in that pantry. Like, do we have Cheetos? Do we have nacho chips and salsa? Like, what? And I hear the thoughts. So I have a choice at that point. I can make the choice and have them. And then there's other things that come with that, right? Or I could say, you know what, Kelly, that is just an old habit or a trigger. You were just triggered. You were just tired. Go back to bed. Now, if I decide that I want to go ahead and have a couple, whatever, have it, move on, go to bed. Go back to bed. But don't like live in this guilt, like, oh my God, I had Cheetos last night, la la la. Which, mind you, for me personally, if I have something like Cheetos, it's going to not just affect me in the sense that it's not so great food, but it's going to affect me because it has gluten in it, and then I ache, and there's all these other consequences. So I know that if I choose a particular food like that, then I am going to be affected in more than one way. So the one of the big hitters, like I said, is your sleep. And sometimes, we have, sometimes we are affected by our rest, by outside variables like our children, but sometimes we are full on responsible for the amount of sleep that we are getting. Sometimes, we find ourselves scrolling and doing that. Sometimes we're just doing mindless shit instead of saying, okay, I really need to focus on my sleep. Maybe sometimes you might need to take some melatonin or, something along those lines. But a lot of times, you guys, I'm going to share this. I see this all the time, is women, especially around my age, they find themselves waking up in the middle of the night and they are, I see posts all the time. God dang it, I can't fall asleep. Here it is, 3 o'clock in the morning, da 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 da. Your cortisol is turning on too early. And that's exactly what the problem is. So, understanding your cortisol and kind of buffering that throughout the day and so on is definitely going to help you. But there are a couple things that you can do to change that and how you can turn that cortisol off. And it's pretty simple. So I'm going to share a lot of that in my series that's coming up next, or this coming week, which actually starts on Tuesday. Because there are a lot of nutrition, I don't want to say hacks, but there's a lot of ways that nutrition, the way that you are eating and paying attention, to your own personal biofeedback and stuff. But you have the ability to control these things. So back to sleep and cravings, right? So another thing is really just recognizing where your thoughts go. Oftentimes we are it's like I visualize half the world walking around like robots. It's like they're lost in thought. So it's like sometimes I will find myself, and this is like maybe the best way that I could explain this to you. Let's say I'm doing mascara, right? So let's say I'm live and I'm doing my makeup and my beauty blog, and I'm full on quiet for 3 minutes because I am thinking that I'm having a conversation, but the conversation is only happening inside of my head. I'm not verbalizing and I'm not speaking to the people that are live with me. I just all of a sudden got quiet because there's all of this chatter going on in my head. So I feel that half of the world is operating under this mindless chatter. As an NLP coach, I completely know this and understand that how the mind works and all of that. And that's what NLP stands for. It's neuro linguistic programming, just in case you're wondering, because sometimes you might hear me say I'm an NLP practitioner. And that's basically what it is I help people to kind of understand their thoughts and thinking, where their beliefs came from. Beliefs govern what you do on a daily basis. And that obviously your beliefs have everything to do with the behaviors and the life that we live, ultimately your outcome. So that's a whole, that's a whole other thing. So you have to really pay attention to the thoughts and thinking that you have, right? And so that's going to lead me into my next one. So the first one was sleep. The next one is going to be your and I just lost my train of thought. The next one is going to be the triggers and habit loops that we have. So everybody has triggers. Everybody has habit loops. It's just a matter of figuring those out. It's a matter of paying attention to what causes this choice. And until you actually really, put your mind to that to figure out what your triggers and habit loops are, then it's just going to be this unconscious awareness and you will mindlessly do things. Like you might find yourself mindlessly pulling into Tim Hortons. Like I recognized, I don't know, it's probably 5-6 years ago by now. I recognized that at the time Colin was still going to the school district that we had previously lived in. We didn't transfer him over into the new school district yet. So every morning I would drive him, and I found myself, every time I saw Tim Hortons, I found myself just mindlessly going into this drive-through. And I really didn't understand what was happening until I actually, studied this and really understood and was like, okay, now I understand what was going on. So every time I saw Tim Hortons, I would then be triggered, and meaning like I wanted this experience of having this coffee, right? So I would pull into the drive-through, I would order this small coffee, and I never really drank it. And that's where I got really curious. Like, why is this happening? Why is it that I'm always pulling into this drive-through, ordering this coffee, but never really drinking it? It was because it was this habit. It was this habit loop and trigger. So we all go through this every day, all day, no matter what. Like, even if it's not something like driving into a drive-through, this could be something along the lines of every day you find yourself craving popcorn at 8 o'clock at night. Well, you have to kind of think about like, what is it that I've always done at 8 o'clock for the last week? Let's say you gave up your popcorn at 8 o'clock at night since the new year started, right? And so now you're wondering, well, like, why is it that I'm always craving this? And you kind of forgot, right? Because we start to forget things, And so then we're like, oh yeah, that's it. Because at every night at 8 o'clock, I'd always turn on Netflix and I'd eat my popcorn, And so we have to remember that things trigger us. And so in that scenario, what I'm stating is that Netflix, turning the TV on, or the time of day. So there's all these different types of things, and you have to really get in tuned. And so when I really encourage my clients, or even you at this point in time, really start to pay attention as to what happens when. And it could even be a person. It could be a smell. It could be a song. I know for me, for the longest time, when I was really struggling with trying to get alcohol out of my life or having a better relationship with it, I was like, really, like, why, what is it? And I had to really recognize what those triggers were. And I know what they are now. And honestly, I don't really get them now anymore because but at the time I'd get this really intense, kind of thing. But it was Friday, 4 o'clock, Friday and Saturday at 4 o'clock. And then a song, or even genres of music, right? So if I listen to ballads, 90s music, early 2000s, I would get this urge that I would want to have a cocktail. So then I started to realize, oh, got it. Okay, makes total sense because what was I doing during the time that I was partying at my heaviest or when, I always like, what was always connecting? You got to connect those dots, right? Or even sometimes weather changing. Weather changing for some people can be a trigger. Then you all of a sudden morph into this other version of yourself because of the change in the season. Do you see? And so if you have a greater understanding of this is when those cravings and all of those things are going to start to rear their ugly head, but you have the ability to say, "Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I know exactly." Or you could say, okay, well, I know that the seasons are going to change here pretty soon. And as soon as I get that whiff of fresh air or that first sunshine or the first time I go out on the boat, I know that I'm going to want A, B, or C. And having that knowledge and understanding of how you know that you operate, and then what? You have the ability to say yes or no, right? And so I think that a lot of us always, until we get to a certain point, we tend to suffer and beat ourselves up for the choices that we make. But when you understand why you're making certain choices and understanding the belief system that you have that govern your choices that ultimately affect your behaviors and your outcome, you follow me? Then you can start to say, okay, this is something that I really want to change. This is something that I don't want to be identified with anymore. This is something that is just not serving me well. And I really need to stop this. And so sometimes for some people, it's a matter of stopping something cold turkey. But for most of the time, it's just a matter of really thinking things through and really recognizing, when something happens. So first was sleep. Second was, the triggers, habit loops, and or am I missing something? Yeah, I think that was the second one. I mean, see how many of these there are that affect your cravings? Like it's crazy. The third thing is also hormonal balance, and so if you find that you are, let's say you're somebody that says, I'm craving carbs all day long. Well, my biggest tip to you is this. What are you starting your day out with? What is the first thing that you put in your mouth to eat, right? So if you're somebody that is eating granola and cereals and bagels and simple carbohydrates, or even things like starchier stuff like if you put like honey in your tea and, you start it with these energy, like a lot of times people make these energy ball things, like these power ball things, or I don't know what they're called, but you have to look at the ingredients and you have to figure out, like you have to ask yourself, does that make me hungry? How is this affecting me on a cellular level? Oh God, you know what? I notice that every single time I have one of those stinking energy balls that I'm constantly wanting starchier carbs all day long. And so you have to remember this and recognize that your body craves what it eats, number one. Number two, how you start your day off is absolutely 1000% going to affect the way that you feel the rest of the day. So if you start your day off with starchier carbs, your entire day is probably going to be filled with starchier carbs. So my recommendation is always focus on protein. Protein is king. Protein affects so many things, and it's ultimately going to continue to change your palate and keep those cravings down. Now, before I forget, I just want to mention that starting on Tuesday, I have a 3-day series. It's free, and I'm going to go in depth on a lot of these things that I'm sharing because I know a lot of these things are not typical in your nutrition and diet frames out there. I approach things at a much, much different level, and I try to educate you in the best way that I can so that you can have results and sustainable results. So if you just go to kellydonlap.com/jeans, because this is about getting back into your skinny jeans, because so many people think that's just too far away. It's not. Getting back into those clothes, I know you have an entire section of your closet that does not fit. There's not one person that I know that doesn't have that. Well, even myself, like my stuff fits, but there's a couple things I'm like, just doesn't look as good as it used to, right? Like we're always on that strive to get better. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, so back to what you're eating. So calories matter, yes, but you know what trumps that is what those calories consist of and how you are being affected on a hormonal level. People are not considering that. And that is massive. And so basically what I'm talking about, what I just mentioned about the fact that if you're starting your day off with these more simple carbs, well, that is what I mean, is that your hormones are going to be affected in a completely different way than if you were to begin your day off with a higher protein kind of a meal. Does that make sense? So that's also going to buffer those cravings down. And then as time goes on and you start to recognize all of these things, your thoughts and thinking, your sleep habits, you start to eat more protein, less starchy carbs, all of that stuff, and you're going to start to notice that just stacking even those changes is going to make a tremendous amount in the way that you feel, the way that you look, and ultimately you will have more confidence and more confidence and less frustration when it comes to this area of your life, because I know that so many people are so incredibly frustrated because they get to the point where they don't know what to eat, they don't want to eat, they're scared to eat because they feel like they're damned if they do and damned if they don't, because no matter what they do, they feel like they're either stuck and not losing or gaining weight. Okay, so I am here to help. Please make sure to opt in on my 3-day series. It's always power packed with tons of information, and I always provide nuggets of gold, basically, where you are able to take these simple solutions and apply them to your life and start to get some quick wins. So I put the link in the comments. Hope to see you. Hope you'll join me. Hope you're having a great Sunday, by the way. And I'm going to go ahead and jump off, and I have a presentation to work on for this week, which starts, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm basically calling it, let's get you back into your skinny jeans. And I'm focusing heavily on nutrition and helping you to understand your body more so on that level, and understanding that calories, they matter, but there's other things that matter more, like I said. So, has everything to do with how your body's responding to how you're feeding it, in addition to your lifestyle habits and practices and the way that you think. So if you found this valuable, please share this, and please comment below with your favorite takeaway. I appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.